There we go. Thank you, Sam.
No problem. It's now 6 o'clock on Monday, October 28th. I call this personnel meeting to order. See that we have everybody here. And has there been any public comment that has been submitted, or somebody that's been wanting to talk?
None received.
Great. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, and if no edits or corrections are needed, then I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Just to checking the neutrality there, maybe a little bit, March 23rd, I think I was the only member at that, so I can approve those minutes if you'd like, for March 23rd, I mean, March 2023 that you have there.
Yeah, I was not even.
Yeah, chair, so I'll go ahead and approve those minutes because I was an active member at that time.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second. I wasn't active.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just for procedural sake, we'll accept them because I'm willing to accept them because Mr. Coleman, you're saying that they're accurate. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so, and just to be clear, Mr. Coleman, your motion specified the March 27th, but were you moving for all of them?
Yes.
Okay, great. So all the minutes are approved, including the March 27th that Mr. Coleman was the member at.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to keep going in order of the agenda. I do want to just make a suggestion to us as a body, moving number 6, the rules of procedure, till after number 7. That way we have enough time to have the executive session discussion. I know that we have a hard stop for 7, and if there's enough time left, we can finish up anything or start on rules of procedure. We might not finish that depending on the other stuff, but I wanted to see how the other committee members felt about that.
Well, if you're making a motion, I'll second it.
I am, as long as, well, I wasn't going to make it if everyone was against them, but. All right, so all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so we've amended the agenda so that the executive session is going to happen after the personnel rules revision. And now the rules of procedure will be last.
Right.
Okay. Now we're on to the 2025 regular meeting schedule. It looks like it's pretty consistent, other than it looks like there's some second Mondays of the month. And is that just in coordination with the finance committee?
Yes, that's correct. There are a couple of meetings logistically where it helps our committee to meet the first meeting of the month. That's June and September, but that also helps finance with some work that they need to do at the end of those months. So we just swap those 2 months.
Okay, any?
That, and sometimes I would like to be in a finance committee meeting when I can't be in this meeting.
Yeah, Dr. Cotton is on both this one and finance, so I know that we try.
That's right, yeah.
I got to clone myself.
You don't get a break. We're just gonna
Right.
keep it
Genie.
So I make a motion to accept the 2025 Personnel Committee meeting schedule.
No second.
Seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, and obviously, if we need to add a special meeting like we did in September, then we always have that option as well. But this will, I think, satisfy the requirements of the state so that we have a meeting that is publicly available, and we'll stick to it as best as possible. And then that leads us to compensation for registrars. And from my understanding from the the packet is that, we cannot make any changes in the middle of the term. So this wouldn't be effective until after this election. It would be effective for January 1, 2025, when the the new registrars, I think both are not rerunning, so I don't mean to make it an assumption of whoever's going to win. But whenever the registrars start their term, whoever the registrars are who start their term for January 1st, 2025, these new compensation levels would go into place. Currently, registrars are making $24.27. Deputies are making $18.21, and this is per hour. The proposed change is to bring the registrars up to $30 and the deputies up to $22.50 per hour. That would likely, it is anticipated a budgetary impact of $18,500 per year, so $37,000 over the 2 years, including the payroll taxes. This is something that I think Mansfield wasn't doing for a little while, and now we're getting back into making sure that we are keeping up with what other towns are doing. And I see in the packet on page 10 of 28, looks like there's the benchmarking data for October 2024, and the stipend/salary amount per year for similar sized towns. It looks like we'd be getting ourselves in line with what others are doing. Does anybody have any questions about this? Yeah, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, who are our present deputy registrars?
That's a good question.
I guess I thought that both individuals on the ballot to become registrars were serving as deputies now. Is that correct, Maria?
I believe so. I'd always have to double check the payroll system, but I believe that's correct.
And that-
And I would say for probably at least 15 years or longer, we've set the deputy registrar compensation at 75% of what the registrar's compensation is. And they typically work a rather limited number of hours, usually around elections and things of that nature, the deputies, that is.
Okay, so if I read this correctly, are you saying there's no deputy right now? Deputy registers right now?
There
No,
is a deputy for each party.
I think the deputies right now are the candidates for the upcoming election so that they can learn under the current registrars.
How the deputy thing works. And who appoints the deputy? The register of voters themselves? And when does
Yes.
that occur?
That can occur as needed. Sometimes the deputy will stay the full term. Sometimes for personal reasons, they might leave, midterm. So it's really just as needed as the vacancy arises. And then the registrars have the authority to appoint the deputy.
So a registered voter can pick just about anybody they want to appoint as a deputy.
Yeah, I think that is
So I might,
totally in their own authority.
so I might have a problem with a paid deputy being appointed by, and there may be no way around it because of the way things are set up, but I might be concerned that a registered voter somewhere down the line could pick his brother or sister. Is that correct? Or anybody they want?
I mean, we can certainly get into what we can have that information provided to us. I think that we can ask for that for a future meeting, but at the end of the day, the register of voters is an elected official who has, we don't have the ability to direct them how to do their job, on how to, do that aspect of what they're doing.
So I have a conflict of interest concern here that might show itself later at a later point in time. Also, I have a concern that, our registered voters were, volunteer at one point, not too long ago, correct? It was pretty much an unpaid position.
I guess I thought, Marie, probably,
No.
I thought by law that they had to be paid.
Yeah,
Yes, I believe that's the case. And again, I've only been involved with adjusting their compensation as far back as 2000, I think it was the 2008, 2009 term, or maybe it
Right.
was 2009, 2010, and the changes were made in 2008. So I've only been involved with it since then. But typically, we'll adjust it usually in the fall prior to January 1, which we need to do if we're going to adjust their compensation because we can't by law adjust it midterm. And then again, we would typically set the deputy registrars, as I mentioned, at 75% of the registrar's rate. So that's been happening for as far back as I'm aware of.
So we're looking at 25%, roughly a 25% raise in one full swoop here. I would be in favor of incremental raises, not a 25% raise.
and I think that the reason why it's being introduced this way is because we just have not done it for so long. We're trying to see.
Yeah, it had been done. I just think I know that it happened the last cycle, at least I believe it happened the last cycle, but I think it's at some point in the intervening years, I think the rate of correction fell behind, sort of what we were historically trying to benchmark it to. And because, well, there's a change in staff. So staff came in that didn't necessarily know that tradition of kind of linking this to the assistant town clerk
Mhm.
rate of pay. And so you can imagine how that gap then just sort of grew. No malicious intent or anything, but so there's some catch up being played essentially. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did a quick Google search of Connecticut state laws, and looking at section 9-192 regarding deputy registrar. It solely lists the registrar of voters as the authority to appoint a deputy registrar of voters, and they're in fact instructed shall appoint immediately after their own election. And so if Mr. Coleman, you have a concern of a registrar of voters, in who they select, I would say your best influence is during the election. I mean, if something were to happen with a registrar of voters that is unethical, certainly there's ways to follow up on that, but we don't have the authority to.
We don't have the authority, and I don't think even our ethics commission has the authority. That's my concern. I don't think there's anything that would prevent that from happening, and anybody would have any repercussions from it, other than their constituents.
I think that would be a question that we could certainly submit to the town attorney as to whether or not the elected position of registrar of voters is subject to the ethical rules in the same way. But I feel that if we as elected officials are, then I would imagine they would be as well. But let's save that for a future agenda topic. For tonight's purposes, we're just reviewing the compensation for the new term that begins January 1, 2025. And does anybody have any questions regarding the current proposed numbers?
All I can say is I'm not in favor of that substantial of a raise. I'd be looking for more of an incremental increase.
Like what? What were you thinking?
Well, you go along with what an employee would get, whatever they're getting, between 2.5%, 3%.
So like step,
Yeah.
Well, just to kind of point out some, I guess, like the mathematical reality there. I think the first thing that I would suggest this committee do is decide whether or not it agrees with the wisdom, the conclusion that was applied previously about essentially trying to tie the registrar's compensation to that of the assistant town clerk. If the answer is no, goes down a different path. If the answer is yes, the issue with the sort of incremental adjustments is if the rate of increase is the same for this position as it is for the assistant town clerk, they'll never catch up. 'Cause they'll-
Right.
Yeah.
They'll move in
Yeah.
parallel. So there needs to be, phased or not, obviously staff's recommending
I
to,
may be late in asking this question, but I certainly wouldn't mind seeing 3 years of compensation to our registers and deputy registers of voters to see, you know, what kind of progress we've made.
Well, I think Mr. Aylesworth is correct in that first we need to decide, are we trying to be consistent with what we've done historically and tie the register of voters compensation to that of the assistant clerk? And I don't have a reason why we shouldn't.
Is that the industry standard around the state?
so that wouldn't be the industry standard per se. I can just say that what, and again, Maria, having been here when it was done, can speak to it, but my understanding is that essentially, from an internal equity standpoint, what was done was to kind of canvass all of the positions that we had in our municipal org chart, union and non-union, I assume, but basically found that clearly there's no other job in the org chart that is this job, right? It's very unique,
Mhm.
very specific, like a lot of our jobs are. There's no other job that is like the revenue collector. It's a very specific boutique kind of thing. So the analysis that was previously done, you know, I'm sure it wasn't perfect alignment. Clearly they're different jobs, but how it shook out was of all the jobs that we have, the assistant town clerk job in terms of type of work, complexity, the sort of background or qualifications that we might have, this seemed to be the best match. And so that's why it was decided to link it to that. Maria, is that a pretty good thumbnail sketch?
It is. And then the other piece is around hourly versus more of a stipend compensation. A lot of communities do use the stipend. However, again, back when this was, reviewed many years back, the committee had felt more comfortable with hourly because the hours of work do fluctuate rather dramatically in years where you have, say, for example, a presidential election or a large number of elections. And you may have from time to time, depending on workload, personal issues, et cetera, one registrar may be working more hours than another. So based on all of those reasons, the committee had felt more comfortable utilizing the hourly method as opposed to the stipend method. But again, there are communities that use, one or both. Some communities who use the stipend method also tack on additional stipends for each election. But again, at the time, this committee felt most comfortable utilizing the hourly method. They felt that was the most fair method to apply.
Do they ever go over 40 hours a week?
Occasionally, again, during a very, busy season, like perhaps a presidential election, but not typically. And I am in the final stages of polishing up a historical analysis of about, on average, how many hours they work a year. And if you give me one moment, I can pull up what I have as of right now.
And again, my understanding with the proposed funding is that this puts us well in line with like other similar communities and what they're spending per year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just taking a look, so looking back at some data, and again, we're still in the process of updating it, but some data back to 2008. On average, one registrar, again, working about 731 hours a year, another working about 1,100 hours a year.
Okay. It's reasonable.
As being an elected official who makes zero in compensation, and I agree with that amount that I get as not to create any conflict of interest whatsoever in my work as a counselor. I believe I would like all elected officials to share in the same. I'm afraid of making the salary too high. That could create a different situation that we're in now.
Well, I think you're going to run into, Mr. Coleman, the other aspect of that is you won't get qualified candidates. You will get people who are either I'm concerned about the quality of registrars candidates that will be attracted to working for little to no pay for a
We-
position.
We've had great candidates over the years, for much less amount of money.
What's that?
We've had great candidates for many years for much less amount of money. I mean, it's just recently that we've increased the salary and the stipend of the register of voters.
Because we weren't doing an analysis and bringing it up in line with the assistant clerk position over the years. And due to that lack of action, we are here today to bring it in line with what we've done historically. I mean, I understand that you are not in favor of it going up to this level at this time. I don't have a argument that would agree with that in the sense that, you know, I agree that it's a big percentage, but I also recognize the fact that we just have a lack of action over the years. So,
Okay, we have differing opinions, which is absolutely okay with me, of course.
yeah. Dr. Khan, how are you feeling?
I'm just as tired as everyone else, but no, I'm fine. Would you like me to bring the motion forward or we want
Yeah.
to?
Please.
Okay. Move effective January 1st, 2025 to recommend increasing the registrar's compensation to $30 per hour and the deputy registrar's compensation to $22.50 per hour.
All those in favor, raise your hand.
You got a
Got a
second? George?
second?
Seconded.
You seconding it?
I'm seconding it. And I'm gonna be having some Mucinex when we're done here.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good. Raise your hand. And all those opposed?
Right here.
Okay, and it passes for a recommendation to go to the town council, right? That's the next step.
Yes.
And I also would like just for us to, I think it's a good question regarding the registrar and the deputy registrar, and any kind of ethical concerns, like how would that get addressed for a future agenda topic?
I can just quickly touch on that for you all. I was staffing the ethics board at the time of the ethics code
I don't want
revision.
to, I don't want to do it today just because it's not on the agenda. And
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say the answer is yes, it does apply.
that's good. All right,
Yeah,
so
it does apply.
that makes it easy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get too much into it just because of FOI and not having noticed it on the agenda. So let us move to the next topic, the personnel rules revision, clarification on employee status for registrars
Mhm.
for benefits and other purposes. Let me just get to that. So this is Maria, do you mind introducing this?
Yeah, this was just something that at the staff level, we were hoping to see clarification. Right now, under our personnel rules, regular employees are defined as appointed, essentially appointed officials, regularly scheduled and working 20 or more hours per week in the classified service. Those are the folks who are typically eligible for benefits. We did have an inquiry many years ago during my time away. I think it was about 5 years ago where somebody was inquiring about that. And so just for clarification purposes, we thought it would help in the personnel rules to clarify that registrars are not regular employees.
Or their deputies, correct?
The deputy would not be, they would be not part of the classified service, right?
Correct. Mr. Coleman?
We gotta clarify that. Regular employees does not include register of voters or deputy register of voters.
I think that what Maria was saying is that that deputy registrar does not get included as a employee that would fall under this definition, so there's no need to include them in this because they automatically aren't part of it.
And you're appointed, yeah.
You didn't by that.
And typically the deputies might work 100 or fewer hours in most years. Again, in a presidential election year, they might work more than that, but generally their hours are so limited. They would generally fall under what we call non-regular. And they're also appointed versus elected, so slightly nuanced difference. It was just sort of this paid elected piece, and we thought we just had a sentence making it clear that registrars are not, regular employees, that would help in the future.
Does that make sense?
It does, because when I was asking, do they ever work 40 hours a week and so forth, that's what I was getting at. Do we then have to pay benefits and, compensation package, yada, yada, so. We don't. Is my understanding, okay.
And we're just clarifying with this that they wouldn't, and the reason why deputy registrars are not being included is because they don't even fall under the same classification, given how they're appointed.
Yeah, they're appointed, yeah.
No,
Okay.
it makes sense. I have no objection to the language.
Does anybody want to make the motion?
Okay, move effective October 28th, 2024 to recommend to the town council modifying the definition of regular employee in the personnel rules as presented.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Coleman. All those in favor, raise your hand. My hand's up. It's not showing. Great. Thank you both. And so at this point, I think because we modified the order of the agenda, is there a way to make me the host and then everybody else can leave and it'll just be the personnel committee members? And then I don't know if we end up wrapping up and we want to get onto the rules too. I'm sorry, the rules of procedure. Would either one of you want to come back, or is that just something we would kind of do on our own?
Maria might be able, if there's a need for staff support, might be in a better position, because I'd probably just go down the hall and make sure council chamber is ready for the full meeting. But I'll check my phone if somebody texts and says I'm needed back here for that last item. I'll try to come back by.
Okay.
All right, thanks all.
Good.
Yeah, and same, Sam, if you need me to come back, you can just, send me a text and I'm happy to come back and help. And I'll just stay on until we get the motion to go into executive session situated.
Great. Does anybody want to make the motion? I can make it if nobody wants to. I move to move the personnel committee into executive session in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes Section 1-206A to discuss the town manager performance review. And I'm not inviting anybody, it'll just be the personnel committee members. All those, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Perfect. And thank you. I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, this is Personnel Committee. We are now out of executive session and I'm going to move to increase the town manager's annual salary by an amount to be discussed at the full town council. Be effective December 1st, 2024.
Second.
All second, do I have
Just a, maybe a friendly amendment, we're not necessarily increasing it. You are suggesting to the council to determine, we're
an
not
amount?
suggesting an increase necessarily. That would be the friendly amendment would be that we're setting this for the council to determine his step increment or that. I feel more comfortable with that. That makes sense?
No,
If
I'm
you go
kind of
back to your original
confused.
motion.
I thought we were in agreement that an increase would be happening. It was. I don't want to get too much into,
I don't want to confuse the matter either.
okay, so,
I'll second your motion.
and we're gonna have the full discussion in executive session, but all those in favor, raise your hand.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're making recommendation to have this discussion at the town council.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I don't want to try to do the next agenda topic that is remaining.
On that for the next meeting, when you do have that, if you got a second. There was language here for the rules of procedures. I think you picked out item 2 and item 4, if I remember.
Yeah, that was just to start with. I think we identified those two as needing attention. One had the notice issue of clarifying, exactly what, given the town clerk's office is closed on Fridays. And then the,
Item 4 had corrected language, but item 2 did not have corrected language.
correct. What I'd like to do is table this discussion for our next meeting. And the reason why Rule 2 does not have the languages, because I thought we could just do it ourselves and figure out what we're comfortable with.
Okay.
But if you want a staff recommendation, let me know, and then we can ask for that. But I thought that we could work on it ourselves.
Discuss it and then ask for staff.
Right.
After that.
So I'm moving to table rules of procedure, agenda on the modified agenda, item 7, the rules of procedure, Rule 2 and Rule 4 to our next personnel regular scheduled committee meeting. And I see a second by Mr. Coleman. All those in favor, raise your hand. Great, it's unanimous. And motion to adjourn,
Yeah,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Cotton. All those in favor, raise your hand. Great, it's unanimous. So I will let Maria know, and we are all set until the town council meeting.
all right, see you at the council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you both.